Greetings everybody. Happy Tuesday evening. Who is here? I don't know, I can't see a thing through my glasses. I'm not even looking at the right screen. Let me clean my glasses. How's everybody doing? It's been a busy week, has it not? Well, we've got lots to cover tonight. I see there are already questions coming in the chat. I'll be able to actually make them out in a second. All right, let's see. Yes, so hey Bruce, good to have you here. Nice late spring day. Not here, it's not. It's a just a rainy, miserable brown day today. But I'm glad it's nice down there. I've got several things to do, including answer questions from Ray and Robert. Hey Alan, it didn't go well. Robert's asking me how my slime mold hunting went on Sunday. I found something fascinating, but it wasn't a slime mold. And it made for some great photographs, and I made a video about it, but it wasn't a slime mold. I'll get to that in a minute, actually. I might even be able to show you the footage I took. Well, why don't I just tell you that now? I was gathering stuff, looking for slime molds, I was looking for plasmodia, the slimy bit, so I could bring them home and grow them. But I was turning over logs, and I found attached to a dead plant a little twig covered in orange blobs. And I thought, well, that's got to be a slime mold, and that'll be interesting. So I snipped it off and put it in my box, which was damp, and then eventually went back to the house. And when I took it out of the box, the orange blobs were still there, and I put it on a pin and stuck it up on the microscope and took a look at it. Turns out that the orange blobs were aphids, and they all had their proboscis stuck into the twig, and that's why they weren't moving. So instead of taking photographs, because they were moving side to side, I just turned on the video, and I recorded about an hour of these aphids because they were absolutely hysterical. The little ones would just walk right over the big ones, because the big ones didn't want to stop sucking the sap out of the stick. And it was so funny, I ended up making a video of it for a friend's daughter, which turned out to be a pretty funny video. I might show it to you guys sometime. It's for kids, but yeah, it had a bit of humor in it. But anyway, if we have time, I will grab the footage that I took of the aphids and show you some of it, because it was entertaining. So how is everybody else doing? Let me see who has shown up. Allan, greetings. Taluka, hey. Paul, Jim, glad you made it. Amy, these are all names I'm recognizing from a certain competition that finished yesterday. The Allan Walls Photography Photo Competition for October ended and has been judged, and about 5 minutes ago I stopped recording the winner's announcement. Now I'm going to give you guys a choice, actually, as to what we do, because I've got some questions to answer first. But I have also set up the microscope, and I'll prove that to you with a little live footage of my tweezers. I set up the microscope to answer a question that I've been meaning to answer for a long time about pinning small insects. That is one option. That might take a few minutes. The other option will be not to do that this time, do it next time, and instead show you the winners from the photo competition, which is going to be coming out as a video tomorrow or thereabouts. Or maybe tonight. You never know. I have finished it. So leave me a word in the chat and tell me what you think that we should do. Then I've got a few announcements I want to make very quickly. tell you about some projects that are ongoing, and then answer another question that I got from my good friend in Israel, Moshe, who I don't think is on the live stream today, but he will, because it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and he'll be watching the video later. So why don't I start with the questions that have already come in while you guys decide whether or not you want to look through the microscope or look at the pictures, which you're going to see tomorrow anyway if you watch the video. So Robert was first in and asked me to explain focus bracketing, the thing that Alison mentioned. Yeah, focus bracketing it's actually a fairly general term, but it is used more specifically when talking about camera functions to describe the situation where your camera will take a picture and then refocus at a predetermined step and take another picture for whatever you set it to do. A lot of cameras these days and a lot of new mirrorless cameras are coming with this feature built in. My Nikon D850 is one of the few DSLRs that has this function. They call it focus shift shooting, Nikon does, but it's the same thing. That's focus bracketing, where you basically say, I want you to start here and I want you to shoot in increments, and that's an arbitrary number, 1 through 10, from small to big, and you'll fire a certain number of shots, 20 or 30, you set that as well, and it's kind of a quick and dirty way to focus stack on a tripod. Now, some cameras will take those images and put them together into a photograph. That's a different thing. That's a focus stacking software solution in the camera. Far fewer cameras have that, but that's probably going to change as well over time. I know that some of the Olympus cameras, and I believe that the one that Alison uses does have that function, but I think that most people prefer to stack the images themselves, and focus bracketing is just taking the pictures without stacking them. I hope that answers your question, Robert. Robert, I thought you had a D850. If you do, you have this on your camera. Ray is asking, I'm having trouble with the Wii Macro software on your Apple computer. It won't hook up because of your computer saying you have malicious software on it. Well, that is a problem that you'll have. I take it, Ray, you have an M1 Mac, one of the newer Macs. If you do, it kind of depends how you discovered you have malicious software. If this was the computer telling you that there is my Mac will tell me that whenever I try to put anything in that isn't off the App Store, and you can actually go into your what's it called, system preferences, and go to security and privacy, I think it is. And you'll find a list of things that are being blocked, and you can unblock them if you're sure it's from a safe site, and Wii Macro is. So I'll tell you what, I don't know enough about it to give you good advice, but if I were you, I would just call Apple and ask them. They'll tell you exactly where it is in that program. I'll tell you what, I'll just look it up and let you watch as well. So that's YouTube as well. That'll put you off because my lips are moving in a different time zone. I'll move that back. So now I can't see what's on the screen. There. Okay. I was taking a picture of some computer chips. Very nice, isn't it? Very detailed. It's in here. Security and privacy. And yeah, it's under accessibility, I feel pretty sure. You have to give the app permission to control your computer, and that's where you'll find it. And there's probably a rule against putting your security and privacy page from your computer on the internet. So I'll probably stop doing that now. That wasn't very clever. All right, so Yeah, I think that it's an easy fix. I had it happen when I tried to install Wondershare the other day. It said what can't do it, malicious program, and I just gave it permission over there in that part of the security and privacy under privacy. And if that doesn't work, call Apple. They'll help you. All right. And I don't like using the a rail with Bluetooth either. All the issues I had with it were related to that. By the way, I finished the review of the Wii Macro, and I am halfway through editing it, and it should be out in a couple of days. I think there's going to be some information in there that you have not heard before, and if you're thinking about buying one, you might want to listen to that first. All right. Let me see. Hey, Laura. Laura is recovering, and glad you could make it tonight. I can't figure out how to make the messages scroll properly. Here we go. All right. Looks like we've got a good signal for a change too. All right. So let's see, has anybody voted on whether they want to look through the microscope or look at some pictures? We're going to answer Moshe's question before we get to either of those. He emailed me this morning and asked me if it was possible to slab in Photoshop. And yes, it is possible to do slabbing in Photoshop. But it is horribly messy and slow and manual. The only way that you can do it, and I'm assuming that Moshe meant can it be done automatically? Is there a program that will do the whole thing for you? And no, there isn't. But you can split up your stack into separate substacks, and you can run each one of them with its own alignment. Then you can take those 5 or 10 or 15 outputs and you can align them together and you can stack them together. The problem is, and I'd have to refer to Rick to get the scientific answer for this. The way that the Photoshop stacking program works is by examining the photograph and then making masks to reveal only the parts that are in focus, and then layering those in focus parts together with the masks intact. And because of that, I am not 100% sure that you can realign after these images have been stacked once. But it would stand to reason that you could, but you'd have to flatten the image first, which means you could never retouch from the original photographs. You could only retouch from the slabs, and that is exactly the same issue that you have with Helicon. Is just the inability to be in one place with all of your inputs and retouch from them. So the answer is yes, you probably can, and no, you probably don't want to. All right. Hey, everybody. Loads of folks here tonight. Wonderful. Gilles, welcome from Gatineau, Quebec. Did I say that right? Walter, I know Northern Virginia's right for where you are. Steve, what's it like in Vancouver this week? Cold and wet? Michelle votes for photos. Happy birthday, Michelle. 23, 24, tell us. Tell us, we won't tell a soul. Oh, Arthur, I'm sorry. Gee. That's hard. Well. Let me see. What else are we up to? Leroy is using a 3D printer bed as a macro rail. You're not the first person I've heard do that. It certainly gives you the same accuracy. Does it not give you a little bit of wobble though because of the way the belts are on a 3D printer? It's belt driven, right? So you have a little bit of stretch, I think. Be interesting. All right. We have a vote for the microscope. And, oh, Michelle, you actually put your age up there. You're not supposed to do that. I was just joking. I would have just stuck with 23. All right. Paul's got a question with respect to Mitutoyo 5 and 10 times objectives. Can you use them in an optimal sense with a 200mm macro lens, or is it preferred to use the ITL 2300? No, they are optimally tuned to work with a 200mm macro, 200mm relay lens. If you have a 200mm macro lens, that will work perfectly well when focused at infinity. But if you have an ITL 200, I think that's probably what you meant, that is just another 200mm lens. It's a simpler lens, and it is permanently focused at infinity, the way it's used. The same with the Raynox DCR 150 is another 208mm lens in this case, but it does much the same thing. It takes the parallel light flux coming out of the objective and focuses it on your sensor. Whether or not you prefer a 200mm prime camera lens like the Nikkor, micro Nikkor 200mm f4, or the ITL 200 is a personal taste. They're both the same. They're doing exactly the same thing. A lot of people would say that the macro lens has a lot more glass in it, and that's to be avoided, but I know a lot of people who think that 200mm Nikkor lens is the sharpest relay lens there is. So no, it doesn't really make any difference. You can use either. The key is, whichever you use, if you use the camera lens, you have to trust that the camera lens is the right length, because you also need to have enough physical separation between the sensor and the lens to be sure that you have a sharp image focused on the sensor. Now, the camera lens does that for you. It's designed that way. The ITL 200 or the Raynox are not. They need a tube. They need a microscope tube to separate them from the sensor. Now, the question then becomes, how long does that tube need to be? You'd think, well, it would be 200mm, but that's not actually true. It can be a different length depending on exactly at what distance that lens is focused on infinity. So the way I check it is I set up the rig with the lens that I want to use, and then without the objective in position, I focus the whole thing on infinity using a rail, just aiming the lens at a distant subject and get it in focus. When it's in focus, my system is focused at infinity, and I can put the objective then in front of it, separated by a bit of infinity space, and know that the image that is, or the light rays that are coming out of the objective are going to be focused accurately on the sensor at whatever distance it is. I use a distance of 245mm on the ITL 200, which is a 200mm lens. Why is that? Because that's where it focuses. So you want to use it where it's best, not necessarily at any fixed length. The camera lens forces you to use a fixed lens, fixed length, because that's the way they're made. And if you are using one and you have a mirrorless camera, be sure to use the adapter that corrects that distance abnormality. Does that answer your question, Paul? I hope. All right. Steve, I'm not exactly sure what that is, an atmospheric river. It sounds weather-like. Is it cold? Is that what you're saying? Cold or wet or both? Like a river. Got it. Got it. All right. My slider thing is not working very well. Here we go. Happy Halloween. Is that a holiday? A real holiday? I don't think so, is it? Allan wants to see the small bugs pinned. Okay, how about we stop talking and start pinning? Let's do that. We'll pin and then we'll talk about the photo competition unless we have any other questions. Sorry about your loss, Arthur. That's just terrible. I lost my best friend years ago to something else, and very sad. Last week, I said the step interval of the stack shot isn't constant. In light of that stunning revelation, do you still recommend stack shot as the #1 device? I am going to defer to my review to answer that question specifically, because it is much more involved than the question would have you believe. The variation in the stepping of the stack shot occurs at the far limit when you're stacking at a micron or two, and it is corrected for by the precision mode. So when I said that the rail was still basically the same rail that it's always been and nothing has been changed, well, that's not strictly true. They added the precision mode. They didn't have that when the tests were originally done by Rick. There was no precision mode, and I don't know if the precision mode came about as a result of his testing or if they were doing it anyway. I have no idea. But now there is a workaround. That's why when you're shooting stacks at very small steps, you want to use the precision mode. Now, because of that, I think the rails are performance-wise comparable. And the variation in the step length is something that may or may not have any significant impact on image quality too. You've got to remember that. You can have a lot of variation in the step length and it not make any difference because we're talking about very small steps. So please listen to the review, because that way I can answer your question in context and not just give you a yes or no that might be misleading. And I don't want to do that, because as I say in the review, I love my stack shot. I'm not getting rid of my stack shot. I love this Wii macro. It's surprised me at every turn. But yeah, watch the review and you'll understand what I'm saying. And it was a stunning revelation a long time ago when Rick discovered that. That was quite a few years ago now. Hello, Bud. Glad you made it, sir. And John from Northern Ireland. Excellent. Let me see. Let's do the... Gilles asking about the insect purchase video. I said last week, or the last time I discussed it, that I had one more order to make. It's actually two more orders to make, and I didn't make them because this last week I had basically three interviews in a row, 3 days in a row, and it's pushed me so far behind on top of the move. It is on my list to do tomorrow. They're both from the UK, and I hear they both deliver very fast, and it'll only take me a few days to do the evaluation that I do on all the stuff I get. All the rest of it is done. All of the rest of the boiling down of the numbers and everything, and I'm ready to give a report. But these are two vendors that came to me from a recommendation a bit later, and I think they need to be in the study so soon. But that does remind me, there was something I was going to tell you guys last week, and then I didn't tell you because we ran out of time, which was my fault. So I'm going to tell you now. You'll still be the first people to know it. Last Thursday, I had a nice, long, involved conversation with a macro photographer that is very popular with a lot of my viewers. You probably know Michael Wydell from Sweden. He has a popular YouTube channel, does lots of outdoor macro. He's very bright, very funny guy, and a great photographer. Well, he and I sat down and we talked about macro photography and YouTube and being YouTube macro photographers, and compared notes. Basically what we did was we interviewed each other. We took turns with the conversation, and the end result was a very interesting back and forth that I think is going to make a very interesting video. And I am about a third of the way through editing it, and when I get it finished, Michael's going to put it on his channel, I'll put it on mine, and we'll see what you guys think. But it was a thoroughly enjoyable conversation. I think you're going to like the guys. A real class act. Lots and lots and lots of microscope votes. So that's what we'll do. Let me see, was there anything else before we go over there? Let me tell you what I'm going to do. This occurred to me last night while I was shooting a weevil. I'll show you the weevil. That would be a good idea. This was I didn't like the sound of that. Something just went click. It was the other camera though. I was photographing a weevil, and I have these weevils that I got from one of my vendors, and they arrived in a packet of about 10, and they're all different species, and they're a complete mess. So what I did was I was picking them apart and getting them posed one at a time, and I thought, this is what you guys need to see to understand how to do this glue pinning, is what I'm going to show you. So let me show you the picture of the bug first so that you can see how cute it is, and then we'll go over there and I'll show you the steps. I am going to share my screen with you. Alrighty, let me just see if I can find it. I can't exactly remember what file I have it in, but I lost a hard drive this weekend after it crashed on me, and it had all my Lightroom pictures on it. But as you can see, I got them all back because I have loads of backups. But it's probably not vital that you see. Oh, these I don't think you can play video. Yeah, maybe you can on Lightroom. Yeah, these were the weevil. I mean the aphids that I thought were slime molds until they started moving, and they are just the funniest things to watch. And I've now rigged up my old big screen television hanging on the wall, and I had this on, takes up a quarter of the wall, watching these aphids go back and forth all evening. They are so funny. The little ones pay no attention to the adults. They just walk all over them. So they're very much like humans in that regard. But anyway, yeah, I'm They do it on purpose. They deliberately get in everybody's way. But anyway, it was so funny. I made a video about it, but I'll show you that another day. What was I going to show you? Oh, the weevil. I mean the weevil that we're going to pin. There he is. This thing is very, very small. That was photographed at 5 times magnification. And it's a very, very small weevil that was brittle and dry and looked like it was going to fall apart. So what I did was I put him and his 9 traveling mates in a little plastic bottle with a little bit of moisture. Left them in there like that for about 24 hours. And this is what I then do. All I'm going to be using are a few pairs of tweezers, a single piece of filter paper, which I am going to cut into some fine strips like this, and an inset pin that's over by the microscope. I'll use a 2.0 or a 3.0, one of the fine pins, and a tiny bit of super glue. This is what I want to show you, is how you apply the super glue and then how you prepare the pin so that you can pick up the bug instantly without getting glue all over everything and having the joint fail, which is the problem that everybody has. I'm going to get you under the microscope, and then we'll pick one of these guys out. Now, I'm not going to be able to see what you're seeing because of the lack of eyes in the back of my head. So I'm going to take a look over at the screen and see once if I get that switched over. It seems to be fairly clear, doesn't it? I'm going to make sure it's in good focus here and then check there. Yeah, I think that's going to be good enough to see. So the question is, can you hear me? Looks like you probably can. Okay, I'll just talk loudly because I'm going to be facing the other way. So what I'll do is I'll just pick one of these weevils, pretty much at random here. I haven't looked at these too closely to see what we've got here. Maybe that green one. I don't think, well, yeah, you're still in focus, aren't you? Yes, okay, good. All right, so we'll go with this yeah, we'll go with this green one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little card out of the plastic thing, and I'm going to nudge my weevil onto a piece of filter paper. If you try to do this with a dry weevil that's on this fuzzy paper, this is when you'll pull antennas and things off. It's just take your time. It'll end up with fibers all over it, but that's okay. You can pick them off. And a lot of the vendors will send you bugs in packaging like this. If you ever order the scientific lots, as they're called, they'll frequently come in these little packets of fuzzy they'll frequently come in these little packets of fuzzy paper that absorbs their juices, but it gets all over them, and you really have to use fine tweezers and pick every hair out of there. We have a little bit of a problem in the focus on the camera. The focus on the microscope and the camera are slightly off, so I'm going to try to fix that over here, because if you don't see this in sharp focus, you won't know what I'm doing. Let's try to fix the light too. Now the reason I put him on a piece of filter paper is so that I can slide the paper to move him and not have to worry about touching the bug when he's on paper. So rather than, in a case like this, I would pick off as many of the hairs as I could at this point, and then flip him over, pin him, and then do all of his positioning with the pin in place. But I still only have one eye, so I have no depth perception to find the hairs. So I'll do that afterwards. And instead I'll just go straight to the pinning part. So I'll flip him over, usually just by grabbing a limb and rolling like that. And this is when you're going to use the little bits of paper. Sorry about the erratic movement here. I'm sitting sideways and it's a little tricky to... Where is he? There he is. All right. So now I'm going to take these tiny strips of filter paper and I am going to touch them on each of his various appendage joints. The reason is I don't want water and super glue mixing together. So I'm going to look through the microscope to do it, and I'll put the paper right, and you should see the water soaking up into the tip of the paper. I'm going to put the pin on this one on the midline. So it's the midline where the legs come together that I want to soak all the fluid from. And it'll be a mixture of water and body fluids. It'll usually be tea colored or brown. And I keep doing this until when I hold it on the middle of the insect, no fluid comes flowing out. I know that I'm going to get in trouble from somebody for making you seasick, but this is until I get the next piece of the microscope sorted out, this is as good as I'm able to do, and one eye is just tricky for this kind of thing. So what I'm doing is just touching the paper at the joint. There we go. I think we've probably got them mostly dry now. Okay, so the pin. Now, the point that I'm going to make here is that I tell you this, that you use so little glue that you can't see the glue. And let me show you exactly what I mean by that, because I'm not exaggerating. The idea is that you want to have a coating of cyanoacrylate on the end of this pin so that when you touch the pin onto the animal, it instantly bonds. If there's any liquid CA glue between the pin and the insect, it won't bond. And the pin will move, spread the glue around, and make the connection. It'll also spread any water around and weaken the connection. And that's when you may get it to stick and it'll fall off halfway through cleaning it. If you have so little glue you can't see it and it sticks instantly, you can almost flick the thing and it doesn't come off. So what I'm going to do is bend the pin to the shape of the weevil. In this case, it's almost flat on the bottom, but my hand is going to be coming in like this to the paper at about 30-degree angle. And I want the pin to be absolutely flat to the weevil's midsection. So what I'm going to do is just the last 1.5 millimeters, bend it like, I don't imagine you can see that. How about we use the microscope? Good idea. So that is what the bend looks like. Didn't look like that big on the TV, but these are very, very small. Sorry, I didn't switch it over. These are very, very small weevils, but that's the pin there. See, that bend is almost as long as the weevil, yet you can't see it without a microscope. It's a little weevil. So the thing is, you need to position him so that your right hand, if you're right-handed, can come in like, hang on, let me get him centered. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to take the pin, there it is on the paper next to him. You're going to come in at exactly the angle you want it to permanently stick at. And then you're going to touch it on the midline like that, just like that, bang. And that first touch will be all you have to do. That will glue it. So let me show you what I do. I'm going to do the gluing outside the microscope, but you'll see the glue on the end of the pin. I don't want to put CA glue underneath a microscope objective and have it mess that up. So I've got a blob of glue that is big enough. Actually, let me drop the magnification. Okay, so I've got a blob of glue on the end of my pin right there. You see it? Should be in focus now. If you try to glue this thing with that blob of glue, it's not going to work. It's too much. It'll never stick. I'm going to improve the light a bit. So here's what I recommend you do. First of all, fix that alignment problem. There we go, that's better. Take your glue and touch it on the thing. Pick it up. If it's got glue visible on it, keep doing it. When there's no glue visible on it, nope. You have about 10 seconds, or no, you have about 5 seconds in order to make that move to, hang on, let me try to fix the, oh heck, maybe if I, there we go. Let me turn him over in just a second. He healed that set instantly. All you do is touch it. You don't press it. You don't do anything else. And right at the heel there, it is permanently fixed. And you can do anything you want with the extremities now. They're not going to budge. But that was with all the glue taken off to where you couldn't see so much as a drop of the stuff. If you don't do that, it's never going to stick, and you'll get so frustrated with it. It's counterintuitive, but it's the same with big insects. Even things that are, yeah, put them on my forehead. Even things that are 10 times this big, I use the same technique of not using any glue to speak of. Just have a few cells of it on there. This thing will be still on this pin a month from now. Well, it won't be, because I'll knock it off this table. But does anybody have any questions about that technique, about what it is I'm doing and why I'm doing it? Creating a dry, flat surface that is receptive to the glue, and then using enough glue to get only a few molecules span between the metal and the bug, and it sticks instantly. Walter is having a vote against spending time on topics that will be covered in videos. Well, that's everything, Walter. I talk about everything in videos, but I get your point. So we won't worry about the photography competition until tomorrow when the video comes out. But it's an interesting one because, yeah, you'll see. I said we weren't going to talk about it. Any questions about the glue situation? Whose backside looks like a skull? Hey, Bill, glad you made it back. Who looks like a skull? Do tell me so that I can look that up. The beetle did? All right, well, I'm glad that that helped some of you. It really makes all the difference in the world, and I urge you to try it. If you don't work with bugs this size, and you don't use this technique for non-bugs, just grab a grain of rice. That's what I get people to practice on. A grain of rice is the right size and the right weight, and you'll see how little glue you need to pick up a grain of rice. The one thing to guard against is what I said. After you blob the last bit of glue off, you only have a few seconds, and once the glue dries, the dry part spreads over the end of the pin and nothing will stick to it till you put more glue on. But okay, good. A lot of people struggle with that, and it's always the same. I've stopped asking people when they say I'm having trouble glue pinning little insects. I don't even ask them what the trouble is, because I know what it's going to be. Too much glue is always the first thing. The bug looks like a skull. The bug that I just... I want somebody to explain this to me. Nope. Am I looking at the right part? I don't know. I guess after the live stream, I'll photograph this and see what part of it looks like a skull. But let me show you something. When you have him pinned, let me do it against my forehead again. There we go. When you have him pinned like this, and that pin's on the midline, here's a trick. The appendages are four appendages at the front, and the knees will always be up here. To get those legs down, you have to push forward from the knee. So you take your tweezer or a pin, and well, I'll tell you what, let's look at this picture here and I'll show you what I mean. This will be easier to demonstrate. So this is the front limb here. Now this guy is missing his foot, but he came missing his foot. There's part of it right there actually. But see how the knee is up in the air? Normally it's up about here. If you take that and you try to pull it backwards, like towards the back of the weevil, the leg will break off. What you do is, with your tweezer, push it forward along the side of the face as if you're going to the eye, and the whole leg will swing down, and then you can lift it up like that. And it's exactly the opposite with the two sets of back appendages. Those, the knees will be up here against the body, and you have to push them backwards along the side of the body, and they'll swing down, and then you can bend them out. And they don't, I see people pushing and pushing and pushing in the wrong direction to get the leg to straighten out, and it never will, because it's a ball and socket that's fixed there, and it'll just eventually snap off. But if you learn that, and it's the same on all beetles, the four limbs are always going to rotate forward, and the two hind sets rotate backwards. And when you do that, you can get them easily and quickly in a normal walking position from a pin position like this. And I frequently on little stuff will glue pin it now and then position the appendages later when I'm ready to shoot it. Because as soon as you position them, the chance of them getting knocked off goes through the roof, because these things are very, very small. And I didn't do a good job of that because all my hand signals were to myself. But yeah, that is a handy thing for you to bear in mind. Push the front legs forward, the rear legs backward along the side of the body, and then you'll have them just where you want them. Now it's a smiling skull. Okay, I'm going to have to... I don't know how I missed that. I'm normally the first person to see skulls and faces and people in these insects, but I missed it. All right. Am I missing any questions that I needed to answer? I do not recommend gel super glue. Absolutely do not. In fact, I recommend the thin as water kind. The reason is the gel is designed to keep more of the substance on the applicator, so that you can deliver more glue to your subject. And that we want the exact opposite. We want as little glue as possible. The gel is it would stand to reason that the gel would be better because it's thick. It's not. It just means whatever you do, you've always got too much glue on the end of the pin. I do not recommend it. Will any super glue do? Yes, any liquid super glue will work. They are all the same. They're just cyanoacrylate, and they all work the same. Some of them smell worse than others, but liquid runny super glue. And in this case, I tip the bottle up and put a drop on the end. I don't recommend doing that because you'll get super glue eventually on a camera if you're not careful. I normally have a piece of plastic about the size of one of these lens cleaners that I fill up with dots. Every time I do a pin, it gets a fresh dot. If you use an old dot of glue that's kind of getting gooey, it won't stick right. So it's just the way I roll. Put a fresh drop, and it doesn't have to be an invisibly small drop on the mat. Touch your pin, pin it, and then get a fresh drop for the next one, because it'll be an hour from then, and that glue will either have hardened or thickened. It makes all the difference in the world. It probably sounds like a completely trivial thing to do, but I have been doing this long enough to know that this truly is the only way that works all the time, is using less glue than you ever think you need. A fine bristle. This insect's a bit big for a bristle. The problem is, bristles are great. Bristles are fantastic. I use them, different kinds of bristles for a lot of small insects. I photographed a fairy wasp last year that was so tiny, all I could use was the very end of an eyelash was the only thing I could hold it on. So I'll use as small as I need to. The problem is bristles are very flexible, and the one motion that is guaranteed to get you in trouble with these tiny insects is anything that flicks the pin. So unless I'm forced into using a very, very flexible thing like an eyelash, I'll try to go with something a bit stiffer like a 4/0 pin or a 3/0 pin. They're harder to twang the thing, because when you do that, the insect goes flying. You'll never find it again. The pin is covering the skull part now, so this is probably one of those conspiracies, isn't it? You guys, while I have my back turned at the microscope, tell them there's a skull on it and they'll spend all night looking. I will look at all the others and see if there's any skulls on them. I may have another one of these green ones, but I've covered the skull up, eh? Typical. All right. So yeah, bristles, good. The other thing I use is, what do you call them? Paintbrush bristles. They make paintbrushes in all different kinds. Oh, here they are. Artists would know about this kind of thing, but some of them have these kind of bristles here that are a little bit thicker and stouter. Let me do the forehead thing than the black ones, which are very soft. I have a little case that has bristles of all different sizes, and the trick is to use the largest, stiffest one you can get away with. And the technique, by the way, with a bristle is identical to this. You dip the bristle in the glue, you get all the glue off it, and then instantly touch the bug, and it'll work every time. Which is incidentally also the way you stick the bristle to a toothpick. I don't know if when you do that, if you normally reinforce the bristle, but the first thing I'll do is I'll take the eyelash or the bristle, put a bit of glue on the third closest to me, and stick it on a toothpick so I've got a handle, and then use that for the bug. Oh, don't pull my string on insect prep, because that's what I do love to talk about. Okay. Yeah, I had one of my friends. I know he's not on the live stream because it's like 2 o'clock in the morning in England where he is. But he just called me all upset about being at the end of his rope trying to pin this beetle, and he sent me a picture of it, and that was a bee, and the entire bee was a matted ball of super glue. The whole thing was, I'm surprised it wasn't stuck to him. It was glue everywhere. I said, I think you're using too much glue. Isn't it crazy how simple the fix can be once you know about it? The key is the few seconds you have after. Yeah, it is, absolutely. I mean, that's why you saw me remove the glue next to the insect. That was not to show you. I do that anyway. I don't want to have to find the end of my pin. Finding the end of the pin when the glue's off will use up all your time. The clock ticks the second that last drop is off. And you saw I went back a third time, because at first I didn't see there was any on the pin, and then I could just see the outline of some. So yeah, you've got to get it all off. But don't wipe it. If you wipe it on the paper, it will actually wipe all of it off. You just want to touch it and let it absorb. I've said enough about that. Preferred brand of super glue. No, I got several that I like, and I keep forgetting the name of the one that... there's one that comes in a bigger bottle that I like because it's a bit cheaper. It's a guy's name, Bob Jones or Bob Smith. A brown bottle of glue. This Loctite stuff is fine, but really the dollar store stuff is also fine. The trick is to find a bottle with a dispenser that doesn't clog up, because I use a lot of super glue, but it's still only molecules of the stuff, and I end up throwing away 2/3 of it because the top gets all gummy. If you can find one with a nice drippy point at the end, use that one. Bob, somebody tell me, somebody help me here. Bud, who is it? Oh, Bud asked the question. So that was not the person to ask. Let me look it up. Take 2 seconds. I'm always just terrified to press the wrong button during a live stream and cut the whole live stream off. Let me open a new tab. That shouldn't hurt anything. All right, super glue. Has anybody written the name up there yet? Do I pluck my own eyelashes? Yes, I do. Oh, I also pluck them for this. Oh dear. Yeah, I don't. I just pull them out with my fingertips. It's probably not good for you. Has anybody written the name of the glue up there yet? Because I'm not seeing it. Oh, do you guys want to watch this? It's watching me surf the internet. That's fun. The reason I like it, there it is. That's the brand. Instacure by Bob, it says. Bob Smith. I was right. Bob Smith Industries. Yep. Instacure. That's gap filling. That's not the kind you want. The gap filling kind is... the gap filling kind is the gel. You want the liquid. I think, hang on, I might be wrong about that. Don't take my word for that. Allan got it, Bob Smith. Allan, you would have won the prize tonight if I was giving away a pass to something. You'd have won it for getting that right. And then Walter leaps in with Bob Smith 103 Instacure 2-ounce super thin. Well done, Walter. That's it. That's the stuff I like. Oh, smoke deaf. Good evening. I'm glad you're here. What does smoke deaf mean? Don't understand that, but I'm glad you're here too. Are you a macro photographer? Or are you looking for my cooking channel? That's happened before. Good, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, come back every Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Bring questions with you. Oh, did you buy a Nisi lens after watching the videos? I was actually using my the 58mm one just the other day. It's actually a nice piece of glass. Oh, I'm glad to hear that was useful to you. Alrighty, let me see. I hope I'm not missing anything. Has anybody asked a question that I have not answered? Steve clarified that an atmospheric river is a lot of rain. Okay. That's what I would have guessed. Steve, you like Mikhail? He corrected the way I said his name, and then he said, but say it the other way on your video. It's Mikhail Vidal, but yeah, he likes Michael Wydell on the television. He is a nice guy though, isn't he? Smart, very good entertainer, very good macro photographer. When you create a cone-shaped lens shade for an objective lens, does this act as an iris diaphragm to change the f-stop? No, it does not. It does not. All it does is limit the amount of off-axis light that is captured because of the size of because of the numeric aperture of the higher magnification lenses. As you know, as the NA gets higher, above 0.4, 0.5, the cone of light that's accepted into the lens gets larger and larger until Rick's got some objectives with numeric apertures near 1, so that they're just gigantic, gathering receptacles for light. Putting the cone on it, all that does is it cuts out all the light that's coming in off axis and limits the light to that is coming on axis. And that should theoretically improve your contrast and decrease the haziness, which is the reason I use them. And I only use them really at 20x and above, because at 10x you don't have that big a numeric aperture. It's not as big a problem. Most of the haziness that I get at 10x is coming from internal reflections inside my tubes and relay lens. That was a lot of answer to a quick question, but no, it doesn't change the effective f-stop. There are things that you can do on the other side of the objective by adding an iris that will do that. Though usually the limiting aperture is going to be in the objective. We're back to the backside looking like a skull again. What did you have for dinner, Bill? What do you eat up there in Washington? There's got to be something iconic. Lobster, probably. Do you want to know what I'm eating for dinner tonight? I don't have any idea what I'm eating for dinner. Whatever's in the fridge. A Bluetooth microphone headset would improve the sound. Well, yes, it would. And I was actually going to hook that up. But at the last minute, I thought I'd use the camera's microphone. And then it was time to go live when I realized the camera doesn't have a microphone that works. So yeah, I'll fix that. Or just put a second microphone over there. I mean, do you want me to mess around with the microscope more? I thought that would make everybody a bit seasick. I was just doing this to make my point. But yeah, a Bluetooth microphone headset's a good idea. I'll write that down. Is that the kind that makes you look a bit like an airline pilot or telephone operator? Because I'd feel a bit self-conscious wearing one of those. But if you think it's good, I'll get one. Is the cyano the fast or slow setting type? Bruce, it's the fastest of the fast. It's the stuff that most of them are called Instacure. The liquid ones are all like that. If you get a thin enough coat, they cure instantly. So it would be the fastest. And practice on rice so you don't waste good bugs. Why did you not have the bent part of the pin aligned with the abdomen? I do, depending on what I'm going to do with the bug. What Bill is asking is, why is the hockey stick hang on, drawing. This is a good question. Why is my pin doing this? I almost held up a piece of paper that's got all these top secret notes on it, notes to self. So why is the pin like that? This is the head and the tail of the bug, and not, presumably Bill means, bent so that it is going around the abdomen. In this case, it's because the weevil has big bulbous joints where the legs join the abdomen, and it makes a very stable nook to hold the flat end of the bent pin. And with less contact like this, as you'll see from this picture, which I use the same technique on, let me switch it over real quick, you can see that there is very, very little pin in the picture, and that's why I do it on the smallest bugs. You don't need but a millimeter, well, a fraction, a tenth of a millimeter contact to hold the bug securely, and this just is so easy to get out in Photoshop, it's a joke. If I had done what I do with bigger beetles that weigh more and tried to drape the pin around the abdomen in a curve, like up at the tail and then coming down at an angle, that is great when I'm trying to support a weightier bug and I don't want it held in one point. But these are so tiny, one point's fine, and the bend gets the point of the pin out of my way. You can't see it still. I have a microscope there, but yeah, you get the point. The tip of the pin is out of the way. That's why I do it that way. I know it looks backwards, and when you've seen me do it with the bend and then the curve beyond the bend, that's for big weevils like the clown weevils that we've worked with. What time is it? It's 9:02. Normally I get a ding reminder that I have something tomorrow night at 9, but that didn't happen. But we are out of time. Can I show you the glue bottle again? On the internet, yes, I can. This was, well, hang on. This was my bottle, Loctite super glue, but I think you wanted to know about Bob's glue. You know what? I think I just booted myself off YouTube. Is that possible? Oh, for crying out loud, I think I did. All right, let me see if I can fix this and get myself back on. I think I'm still talking to you. It's just I turned the window off. That yeah, it says I'm still live. With an excellent connection. Yeah, oh, thank goodness. All right. So, what was I doing? Looking for the glue bottle. No, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put it in the show notes with a link so that you can go straight to it. I take it you're asking about the Bob Smith glue. Well, I'll put both of them in there. I'll tell you what. I'll go get all of my glue and I'll put links for all of the bottles of glue that I have, except the ones I didn't like. Okay, we're out of time. It is 9:04 and I am supposed to stop doing this at 9 o'clock. So let me make sure I didn't miss anybody's vital question or comment. Happy birthday again, Michelle, and get well soon again to Laura. And let me see, I think I got everything. And Al told me I'm still on. Good, I thought I was. I didn't realize I could close YouTube and still be doing this, which is good. All right, I'm going to say goodbye. Hamburger. That's what William's having for dinner, in case you were wondering. And Let me see. Anything else? Do you ever pin an insect from the side when using a vertical setup? Absolutely, absolutely. But Bud, I need to talk to you about vertical setups at some point, because Bud was a big influence in me setting up this vertical rig, and I'm having a devil of a time with it. It's been many years since I've used one, and yeah, I'm using it mainly for computer chips, to be honest. So yeah, we'll talk about that out of class. In the meantime, what do I have coming up? The video interview with Michael Waddell is coming out in a day or two, as soon as I can get it edited. Bug study is getting closer by the day. The We Macro review, which is a thorough review, is coming out this week as well. And I've got a kids video that I made that I'll show you guys if you want to see it. It's yeah, I'll tell you what. Let me think about it, and if you want to see it, show back up next week. It's only 4 minutes long. I'd show it now, but I probably need to ask permission from the child before I can use it. So I will see you guys in a few days, and then back here in a week. If you have any questions, you can always do what Ray did and Robert did at the beginning, and get here 2 minutes early and write out a question, and guarantees I'll pay more attention to that than any other question, because I'll read the whole thing. Okay, good night, guys. Take care. Enjoy your hamburger, Bill. And that's it. I've answered all the questions. Have a good one, and I'll see you in a week's time. Good night.